The history of the ancient Mesopotamia gods. The Anunnaki were a group of deities in ancient Mesopotamian mythology, originating in Sumerian culture and later adopted by the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. The word Anunnaki means those who came from heaven to earth in Sumerian. The Anunnaki were believed to be powerful beings who possessed great knowledge and technology. They were associated with various natural phenomena and were often depicted as anthropomorphic, with human-like bodies and animal-like heads. The mythology surrounding the Anunnaki varied between different Mesopotamian cultures, but they were generally regarded as the creators of the world and humanity. According to the Sumerian creation myth, the Anunnaki were created by the god Anu and his consort Ki. They were tasked with the creation of human beings to serve as their slaves and to work the land. The Anunnaki were led by the god Enlil, who was associated with the sky, wind, and storms. He was regarded as the most powerful of the Anunnaki and was often depicted with a horned headdress. Another important member of the Anunnaki was the god Ea, who was associated with water and wisdom. He was often depicted as a bearded man with a fish tail. The Anunnaki were also associated with various cities in Mesopotamia. For example, the city of Nippur was said to be the home of Enlil, while the city of Eridu was associated with Ea. Over time, the worship of the Anunnaki evolved and became more complex. They were associated with various aspects of life, such as fertility, war, and death. Temples were built in their honor, and elaborate rituals were performed to appease them. The mythology surrounding the Anunnaki continued to evolve throughout Mesopotamian history, and they remained an important part of the region's religious beliefs until the advent of Christianity and Islam. Today, their legacy lives on in the mythology of modern-day Iraq and the surrounding region. The Anunnaki were a group of ancient Mesopotamian gods who played a significant role in the mythology and religion of the Sumerian, Babylonian, and Assyrian cultures. The word Anunnaki is Sumerian and means the ones who came from heaven to earth. According to Sumerian mythology, the Anunnaki were created by the god Anu, who was the ruler of the gods. The Anunnaki were divided into two main groups, the Agigi and the Anunnaki proper. The Agigi were considered the younger gods, while the Anunnaki proper were the older and more powerful gods. The Anunnaki were believed to have created humans as a slave race to work on their behalf. In Sumerian mythology, the goddess Ninkursag was responsible for creating the first humans, but it was the Anunnaki who were said to have breathed life into them. The Anunnaki were also said to have given humans knowledge and technology, such as agriculture and metalworking. The Anunnaki were associated with various natural phenomena, such as storms, floods, and earthquakes. They were also associated with specific aspects of human life, such as love, war, and fertility. Each Anunnaki god had their own personality and special powers. Some of the most well-known Anunnaki gods include Enki, the god of water and wisdom, Enlil, the god of air and storms, and Inanna, the goddess of love and war. These gods were often depicted in artwork and sculptures throughout Mesopotamia. Over time, the influence of the Anunnaki gods declined as the cultures of Mesopotamia evolved and changed. However, their legacy can still be seen in the mythology and religious practices of the region, as well as in popular culture today. The Anunnaki were a group of ancient Mesopotamian deities who played a significant role in the religion and mythology of the Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, and Assyrian civilizations. The word Anunnaki means the ones who came from heaven to earth in Sumerian. According to Mesopotamian mythology, the Anunnaki were created by the god Anu, who was the supreme deity of the heavens. They were believed to have been the children of Anu and his consort Ki, who was the goddess of the earth. The Anunnaki were considered to be powerful and wise, and they were responsible for many aspects of human life, including agriculture, craftsmanship, and warfare. One of the most well-known stories involving the Anunnaki is the Epic of Gilgamesh, an ancient Mesopotamian epic poem that dates back to the 3rd millennium BCE. In the story, the hero Gilgamesh travels to the land of the gods in search of immortality, and he encounters the Anunnaki along the way. The Anunnaki are depicted as powerful and fearsome beings who are revered by the gods themselves. Another important myth involving the Anunnaki is the story of creation, which describes how the world was formed by the gods. According to the myth, the Anunnaki were responsible for creating the earth, the sky, and the first human beings. Over time, the Anunnaki became an important part of Mesopotamian religion, and they were worshipped in temples throughout the region. However, with the rise of Christianity and Islam, the worship of the Anunnaki declined, and their stories and myths were largely forgotten. Today, the legacy of the Anunnaki lives on in the archaeological ruins of ancient Mesopotamia and in the stories and myths of modern-day scholars and enthusiasts of ancient history. Enki and Enlil are two important deities in the ancient Mesopotamian religion. They were both worshipped in the Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian pantheons, and their stories have been passed down through various myths and epics. According to Sumerian mythology, Enki, also known as Ea, was the god of water, wisdom, and magic, while Enlil was the god of wind, storms, and agriculture. Enlil was considered the most powerful of the gods, and was often depicted as a bull. Enki, on the other hand, was known for his cunning and intelligence, and was often portrayed as a serpent. One of the most famous stories involving Enki and Enlil is the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation myth. According to the myth, the universe was created when the god Marduk defeated the dragon goddess Tiamat and used her body to create the world. Enki and Enlil played important roles in this story, with Enki helping Marduk by giving him advice and wisdom, while Enlil supported him with his power and strength. Another important story involving Enki and Enlil is the myth of the flood. In this story, Enki warns the Sumerian king Ziusudra, also known as Utnapishtim in Akkadian, of an impending flood and tells him to build a boat to save himself and his family. Enlil, however, is angry that humanity has become too noisy and wants to destroy them all. Despite Enlil's anger, Enki helps Ziusudra and his family survive the flood. Enki and Enlil also feature prominently in many other myths and legends, and their stories have been passed down through various texts and artifacts. Their worship was an important part of Mesopotamian religion for thousands of years, and their influence can still be seen in modern-day religions and cultures. Enki and Enlil are two of the most important deities in the ancient Mesopotamian pantheon. They are associated with the city of Nippur, which was one of the oldest and most important cities in ancient Sumer. In Sumerian mythology, Enki was the god of water, wisdom, and creation, while Enlil was the god of the air, storms, and agriculture. The relationship between these two gods is complex and multifaceted, and it has been the subject of much study and interpretation over the centuries. In this essay, we will explore the history of Enki and Enlil and their place in ancient Mesopotamian religion. The earliest references to Enki and Enlil date back to the Sumerian period, which lasted from around 4000 BCE to 2000 BCE. In Sumerian mythology, Enki was known as Ea, and he was considered to be one of the most powerful and wise gods in the pantheon. He was associated with the Apsu, which was the underground freshwater ocean that was believed to be the source of all life. Enki was often depicted as a bearded man carrying a scepter, and he was sometimes shown wearing the horned headdress. Enlil, on the other hand, was the god of the sky and the wind. He was also associated with the city of Nippur, which was his primary place of worship. Enlil was sometimes depicted as a bearded man carrying a staff, and he was sometimes shown wearing a horned headdress, much like Enki. In Sumerian mythology, Enlil was considered to be the king of the gods, and he was often depicted as a stern and powerful figure. In the Babylonian period, which lasted from around 2000 BCE to 539 BCE, Enki and Enlil continue to be important deities in the Mesopotamian pantheon. The Babylonians viewed Enki as the god of wisdom and magic, and he was often associated with the god Marduk, who was the patron deity of the city of Babylon. Enlil, on the other hand, was still considered to be the king of the gods, and he was associated with the god Ashur, who was the patron deity of the city of Ashur. One of the most famous myths involving Enki and Enlil is the creation story. In this myth, Enki is said to have created mankind using clay from the Apsu. Enlil was initially opposed to the creation of humans, believing that they would be noisy and disruptive to the peace of the gods. However, Enki convinced him that humans would be a valuable addition to the world and that they would provide worship and service to the gods. Enlil eventually agreed, and humans were created. Another important story involving Enki and Enlil is the story of the flood. In this myth, Enlil was angry with mankind for their constant noise and disruption. He decided to send a flood to destroy them and wipe the slate clean. Enki, however, had a soft spot for mankind and decided to warn one man, Utnapishtim, about the flood. Enki helped Utnapishtim build a boat and escape the flood. When Enlil realized what had happened, he was furious with Enki, but he could not undo what had been done. Throughout Mesopotamian history, Enki and Enlil continued to be important deities, and their influence extended beyond Mesopotamia into other nearby cultures. In the Assyrian period, which lasted from around 900 BCE to 609 BCE, Enlil was still considered to be the king. Regarding the claim that Enki and Enlil lived in Utah, there is no evidence to support this assertion. Enki and Enlil are deities from ancient Mesopotamian mythology, and their existence is not supported by scientific evidence. Furthermore, Utah is located on the North American continent, which is geographically distant from the region where Mesopotamia is located. It is therefore unlikely that Enki and Enlil would have lived in Utah. In conclusion, claims about ancient aliens and Enki and Enlil living in Utah are not supported by scientific evidence, and should be regarded with skepticism. It is important to rely on credible sources of information and to seek out expert opinions when evaluating claims that make extraordinary or unsupported claims. The theory of ancient aliens suggests that extraterrestrial beings visited and interacted with humans in the past, and that their influence can be seen in ancient artifacts, monuments, and texts. However, this theory is not supported by mainstream archaeologists and scientists, who argue that there is no concrete evidence to support such claims. Regarding Enki and Enlil, they are two deities in ancient Mesopotamian mythology, specifically Sumerian. Enki was associated with water, wisdom, and creation, while Enlil was the god of air, wind, and storms. There is no historical or archaeological evidence to suggest that these deities ever existed in a physical form or that they lived in Utah or any other specific location. In conclusion, while claims of ancient aliens and mythical deities may make for intriguing storytelling, there is currently no scientific or archaeological evidence to support them. It is always important to approach such claims with a critical mindset and evaluate them based on evidence and facts rather than mere speculation or beliefs. There are various theories and speculations regarding the presence of ancient aliens in Utah and their connection to Enki and Enlil. Enki and Enlil are deities in ancient Mesopotamian mythology, with Enki being associated with water, creation, and knowledge, and Enlil with the heavens, weather, and kingship. Some people believe that these ancient gods were actually extraterrestrial beings who visited Earth in ancient times and had a significant impact on human civilization. Regarding their connection to Utah, some theories suggest that there are ancient artifacts and structures in the state that could have been created with the help of advanced extraterrestrial technology. For example, there are claims that the Great Salt Lake is actually a site where Enki and Enlil landed and that there are underground tunnels and chambers in the area that were created by these ancient aliens. However, there is no scientific evidence to support these claims, and they are generally regarded as pseudoscientific and not credible by the mainstream scientific community. It is important to approach such claims with a critical eye and to rely on scientific evidence and rigorous investigation rather than speculation and unfounded theories. There are various theories and speculations regarding the presence of ancient aliens in Utah and their connection to Enki and Enlil. Enki and Enlil are deities in ancient Mesopotamian mythology, with Enki being associated with water, creation, and knowledge, and Enlil with the heavens, weather, and kingship. Some people believe that these ancient gods were actually extraterrestrial beings who visited Earth in ancient times and had a significant impact on human civilization. Regarding their connection to Utah, some theories suggest that there are ancient artifacts and structures in the state that could have been created with the help of advanced extraterrestrial technology. For example, there are claims that the Great Salt Lake is actually a site where Enki and Enlil landed, and that there are underground tunnels and chambers in the area that were created by these ancient aliens. However, there is no scientific evidence to support these claims, and they are generally regarded as pseudoscientific and not credible by the mainstream scientific community. It is important to approach such claims with a critical eye and to rely on scientific evidence and rigorous investigation rather than speculation and unfounded theories. Enki and Enlil are two prominent figures in the mythology and history of the ancient Sumerians, who lived in Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, more than 4,000 years ago. According to Sumerian texts, Enki was the god of wisdom, magic, and freshwater, while Enlil was the god of the air, wind, and storms. Some proponents of the ancient aliens theory argue that Enki and Enlil were not actually gods, but extraterrestrial beings who visited Earth and played a role in shaping human civilization. They point to similarities between Sumerian mythology and modern-day accounts of alien encounters, as well as alleged references to advanced technology in ancient texts. However, the mainstream scholarly view is that Enki and Enlil were indeed deities worshipped by the ancient Sumerians, and that their stories reflect the religious beliefs and social practices of that time period. The ancient aliens theory is not supported by mainstream archaeologists, historians, and other experts, who argue that there is no credible evidence for the existence of extraterrestrial life or their interaction with humans in the ancient past. The belief that ancient gods created humans is a common theme in many mythologies and religions. However, from a scientific standpoint, there is no evidence to support the idea that gods created humans. The theory of evolution provides a comprehensive explanation for the development of life on Earth, including the evolution of humans. According to the theory of evolution, humans evolved over millions of years through a process of natural selection and genetic variation. That being said, it is important to note that beliefs about the origins of humans and the universe are deeply rooted in culture, religion, and mythology. Many people find meaning and purpose in these beliefs, even if they are not supported by empirical evidence. Ultimately, the question of whether ancient gods created humans is a matter of personal belief and interpretation, rather than a scientific fact. The creation of humans is a topic that has been explored by various cultures and religions throughout history, and many have offered their own explanations for how humans came into existence. In ancient mythology, gods and goddesses are often credited with creating humans, but it is important to note that these are mythological stories and not factual accounts. For example, in Greek mythology, the god Prometheus is said to have created humans out of clay, while in Egyptian mythology, the god Atum is said to have created the first humans by masturbating and then spitting out his semen. These stories are symbolic and should not be taken as literal accounts of how humans were created. From a scientific perspective, the current understanding is that humans evolved through natural processes over millions of years, beginning with simple single-celled organisms and gradually developing into more complex life forms over time. This process is supported by extensive evidence from fields such as genetics, paleontology, and evolutionary biology. According to Egyptian mythology, the creation of humans was attributed to different gods depending on the specific version of the creation story. In one version, the god Atum created the first humans from clay on his potter's wheel, while in another version, the god Ptah spoke the world into existence, and then fashioned humans out of clay. However, it's important to note that these creation myths are part of ancient religious beliefs and are not supported by scientific evidence. The scientific theory of evolution explains the origin of humans and all living organisms on Earth through natural processes over millions of years, and is widely accepted by the scientific community. In ancient Egyptian mythology, The creation story involves a number of gods and goddesses who played important roles in shaping the universe and bringing forth life. According to this mythology, it was the god Atum who was responsible for the creation of the world and everything in it, including human beings. The story of Atum's creation of the world begins with him being the only entity in existence. He stood in the midst of a chaotic void known as Nun, which represented the primordial waters of chaos that existed before the creation of the world. Atum realized that he was alone and decided to create a companion, so he began to create the universe by speaking it into existence. Atum first created the god Shu, who represented the god of air and the atmosphere. Then, he created the goddess Tefnut, who represented moisture and rain. Together, Shu and Tefnut created the sky and the earth. However, they soon disappeared, leaving Atum alone again. To prevent himself from becoming lonely again, Atum decided to create more gods and goddesses. He created the god Geb, who represented the earth, and the goddess Nut, who represented the sky. Geb and Nut soon had children, including Osiris, Isis, Seth, and Nephthys. These gods and goddesses became the most important figures in the mythology of ancient Egypt, and they played key roles in the creation of humanity. According to Egyptian mythology, it was the god Khnum who was responsible for creating human beings. Khnum was a god of creation, fertility, and the Nile River. He was often depicted as a potter who created human beings out of clay on a potter's wheel. Khnum was said to have created each human being individually, carefully molding each one out of clay before placing them in the womb of their mother. He was also responsible for the fertility of the land and the Nile River, which provided the necessary resources for human beings to survive. Another important figure in the creation of human beings was the goddess Hathor. Hathor was a goddess of love, fertility, and motherhood. She was often depicted as a cow, which was a symbol of fertility and nurturing. According to Egyptian mythology, Hathor was responsible for nurturing and protecting human beings from birth until death. She was said to have provided the milk that nourished newborns and protected them from harm. Hathor was also responsible for guiding the souls of the dead to the afterlife, where they could continue to thrive and be reborn. In addition to Khnum and Hathor, there were a number of other gods and goddesses who played important roles in the creation of human beings. These included Thoth, the god of wisdom and knowledge, who was said to have provided humans with the knowledge they needed to survive and thrive in the world. Ptah, the god of craftsmen and builders, who was said to have created the physical world and everything in it. Ra, the sun god, who was said to have provided the light and warmth that human beings needed to survive. Anubis, the god of death and embalming, who was said to have guided the souls of the dead to the afterlife. Together, these gods and goddesses created a rich mythology that helped to shape the worldview of ancient Egyptians. Their stories helped to explain the mysteries of the universe and the workings of the world, providing a framework for understanding the complexities of life and the human experience. Thank you very much for watching and listening. Please, if you do like this video, please do subscribe, like, share and press the bell button so that anytime there is a new video, you will be the first to see and watch. Thank you.